ሄሎ ኤቭሪባዲ እንዴት ናችሁ? እኔ ደህና ነኝ። የኢትዮቲች ዩቲዩብ ቻናል ቤተሰቦች ላይክ፣ ሰብስክራይብ፣ ሼር ማድረጋችሁ እንዳትረሱ። ዛሬ የምናየው ሪሰርች ሜቶዶሎጂ ኤንድ ሳይንቲፊክ ራይቲንግ ነው። እሱን 5 ዩኒቶች አሉ። 5 ዩኒት አንድ ባንድ እናያለን ማለት ነው። ዛሬ ፓርት 1 እናያለን። Research methodology and scientific writing chapter 1 introduction to research methodology research methodology ምን እንደሆነ እናያለን ማለት ነው። What is research? What is the meaning of research methodology? Research is search of truth with the help of study, observation, comparison and experiment. In short, research is the search of knowledge through objective and thematic methods of finding solution to a problem. Research means finding answer to the question. Research means finding answer to the question. Research is defined as a scientific and systematic search for new information and knowledge on a specific topic. Research methodology is the process of defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions, collecting, organizing and evaluating data, making deduction and reaching conclusions, and at least carefully test the conclusions to determine whether they fit the formulating hypothesis. The purpose objective of research is to discover answer to questions through the application of scientific procedures. The main aims of research is to find out the truth which is hidden and which has not been discovered yet. Types of research. Some major way of classifying research include the following. The 4 types of researches. 1. Descriptive versus analytical research. Descriptive versus analytical research. 2. Applied versus fundamental research. 3. Qualitative versus quantitative research. 4. Conceptual versus numerical research. Then, within this type of research, 1. Descriptive research. Descriptive research concentrates on finding facts to discover the nature of something as it exists without affecting them in any way. Descriptive research concentrates on finding facts to discover the nature of something as it exists without affecting them in any way. Second, analytical research. Analytical research is concerned with determining validity of hypotheses based on analytical or facts collected. 3. Applied research. Applied research is carried out to find answers to practical problems. It is applied research find answer to practical problems to be solved, and as an aid in this find answer to practical problems to be solved and as an aid in decision making. It is applied research in different areas include product design, process design, and policy making. It is applied research. 4. Fundamental research. Fundamental research is carried out as more to specify intellectual curiosity or interest, then with the intention of using the research finding for any immediate practical application. Then qualitative research. Qualitative research studies such as aspects of the research subject which are not quantifiable and hence not subject to measurement and qualitative analysis. Qualitative research. Next, qualitative research makes substantial use of measurement and quantitative analysis techniques. Quantitative research make substantial use of measurement and quantitative analysis techniques. The next we see conceptual research. Conceptual research involves investigation of thoughts and idea and developing new idea or interpreting the old one based on logical reasoning. Conceptual research involves investigation of thoughts and idea and developing new idea or interpreting the old one based on logical reasoning. Empirical research is based on verifiable data collected by either observation of fact under natural condition or obtained through experimentation. Note: research can be field-setting research or laboratory research or simulation research, depending upon the environment fields of study in which it is to be carried out. Significance of research. Research provides the basis for nearly all government policies. Through research we can devise or develop alternative policy and can as well examine the consequence of each of these alternatives. Next, research certainly facilitates the decision of the policymaker. The problem of big and small business and industry, working conditions, trade, union activities, the problems of distribution, even the size and nature of defense services are matter requiring research. Those research is considered necessary within regard to the allocation of nation's resources. The end of chapter 1. Next, we can see chapter 2. Research methodology and scientific writing. Chapter 2. The research process. The research process consists of series of actions or steps necessarily to effectively carry out research. The research process consists of a number of closely related activities, but such activities overlap continuously rather than following a strictly prescribed sequence. The research process, the following order concerning various steps provides a useful procedural guidelines regarding the research process. Formulating the research problem. The first, the following order concerning various steps useful procedural guide of the regarding the research process. 2. Extensive literature survey. 3. Developing the hypothesis. 4. Preparing the research design. 5. Determining sample design. 6. Collecting the data. 7. Execution of the project. 8. Analysis of data. 9. Hypothesis test. 10. Generalization and interpretation. And the last one, preparation of the report or presentation of the results. Next, the research process continue. Firstly, define research problem. We see firstly the research, we see define research problems. The next, review the literature. Review literature hold to systematical analysis. Review concept and theories. The next, review previous research findings. The next step, formulating hypothesis. The third step, formulating hypothesis. Fourth step, decision research including sample design, where a feedback helps controlling the subsystems to which it is transmitted, where F indicates feedback. helps controlling the subsystems to which it is transmitted. 5. Collecting data acquisition or exquisition. Forward and backward analyze data, test hypothesis if any. Analyze data or test hypothesis if any. The last one, forward, interpret and report. Forward F. F means feedback. Help is controlling subsystems to which it is transmitted. FF, feedback forward services the vital function of providing criteria for evaluation. This is the research steps. The research process next. The first step determine the nature of the last steps to be undertaken. The first step determine the nature of the last steps to be undertaken. If subsequent procedures have not been taken into account in the early stage, serious difficulty may arise, which may even prevent the completion of the study. Description of research process steps. 1. Formulating the research problem. Initially, the problem may be stated in a broad general way, and then the ambiguous, if any, related to the problem be resolved. Essentially, 2 steps are involved in formulating the research problem. Essentially, 2 steps are involved in formulating research problems. 1. Understanding the problem thoroughly and replacing the sum into meaningful terms from an analytical point of view. The researcher must at the same time examine all available literature to get himself acquainted and familiar with the selected problem. It is the description of research process steps. 1. Formulating the research problem. Next, extensive literature survey. At the stage, the researchers should undertake an extensive literature survey connected with the problem. Academic journals, conferences, proceedings, governmental report, books, etc. must be typed depend on the nature of the problem. The earlier studies, if any, which are similar to the study in should be carefully studied. 3. Developing of working hypothesis. Working hypothesis is tentative assumption made in order to draw out and test its logical or empirical consequence. Hypothesis should be very specific and limited to the piece of research in hand because it has to be tested. The role of the hypothesis to guide the research by delimiting the area of research and to keep him on the right track. It also indicates the type of data required and the type of method of data analysis to be used. For preparing the research design. The research design is a framework for planning your research. The research design is a framework for planning your research and answering your research questions. Creating a research design means making decision about the type of data you need, the location and time schedule of the research, the location and time scale or schedule of the research, the participants and sources, the variables and hypotheses if relevant, the method for collecting and analytical data. The research design sets the permanent of your research. It determines exactly what will and will not be included. It also defines the criteria by which you will evaluate your result and draw your consequence. Your consequence. 5. Determining sample design. While you are doing research, the goal in it is to collect samples that provide an accurate representation of the population. Samples are collected to achieve an understanding of a population because it is typically not feasible to observe all members of the population. Sample can be either probably sample or non-probably sample. Read about probably sample and non-probably sample method. The researcher must decide that why of selected a sample or what is popularly known as to be sample design. A sample design is definite plan determined before any data are actually collected for obtaining a sample from given population. 6. Collecting the data. There are several ways of collecting the appropriate data, which differ considerably in context of many costs, times, and other resources. The researcher can use primary or secondary data. 7. Execution of the project. Execution of the project is very important step in the research process. The researcher should see that the project is executed in a systematic manner and in time. If the research is to be conducted by means of the structured questionnaires, data can be readily machine processed. In such station questions as well as the possible answer may be coded. If the data are to be collected through interviewer, arrangements should be made for proper selection and training of the interviewers. 8. Analytical of data. After the data have been collected, the research turns to the task of analyzing them. The analyzing of the data required a number of closely related operations such as establishment of categories, the application of these categories to raw data through coding. The last one, tabulation and the drawing statistical inferences. The unwieldy data should necessarily be condensed condensed into a few manageable groups and tables for further analytics. Thus, researchers should classify the raw data into some purposeful and usable categories. Coding operation is usually done at the stage through which the categories of data are transformed into symbols that may be templated and cont'd. The researcher can analyze the collected data with the help of various statistical measures. 9. Hypothesis test. After analyzing the data as stated above, the researcher is in a position to test the hypothesis, if any, he had formulated earlier. This is the usual questions which should be answered well tested hypothesis. Hypothesis test will result in either accepting the hypothesis or rejecting it. If the researchers had no hypothesis to start with, generalization established or the basis of the data may be stated as hypothesis to be tested by subsequent researches in terms to come. 10. Generalization and interpretation. If hypothesis is tested and upheld or supported several times, it may be possible for the researchers to arrive at generalization. If the researcher had no hypothesis to start with, he might seek to explain his findings on the basis of some theory. It is known as interpretation. The process of interpretation may be quite often trigger of new questions, which it turn may load of further research. 11. Preparation of the report of thesis. Finally, the researcher has to be prepare the research report documentation of which has been done by him. The researcher report layout must necessarily be conveyed enough about the study so that the researchers can be placed in its general scientific context, judge the adequacy of its method, and thus form an opinion of how serious the findings are to be taken. For this purpose, there is need of proper layout of the research report. The layout of report means as to what the research report should contain. A comprehensive layout of the research report should comprise primarily page, the main text, and the end of matter. Next we see chapter 3.